He's dying. 25 Hell's Angels crashed through Reese's door, frozen, desperate. One man unconscious, lips blue, not breathing. The giant fell to his knees. Save him. Please, I'm begging you. Reese had $7, a broken heater, a 2-year-old screaming in her arms, and 25 of America's most dangerous men at her mercy. She could have locked the door. She didn't. 3 days later, 1,500 motorcycles would shake her tiny diner to its foundation. Not for revenge, for something no one saw coming. But that's getting ahead of the story. This story starts with $7 and a prayer that went unanswered. $7.12. Reese counted again, spreading the coins across the kitchen table like they might multiply if she arranged them right. 2 fives crumpled from being in her pocket too long. 7 quarters. 12 pennies that caught the light from the bare bulb overhead. Her mortgage payment was $2,300. Due 60 days ago. She slammed her fist on the table. The coins jumped, scattered, rolled across the wood in different directions like they were trying to escape her life too. Mama. She spun around. Callum stood in the doorway dragging his stuffed rabbit by one torn ear. His little body shook inside his pajamas. The flannel ones with the dinosaurs that used to be warm enough. Not anymore. Not with the heat off for 3 days. Baby, why are you out of bed? Cold, Mama. Too cold. The words hit her like a physical blow. She scooped him up, his skin like ice against her neck. His breath came in small clouds. In her own kitchen, in her own home. Her son's breath made clouds because she couldn't afford to keep him warm on Christmas Eve. She carried him to the stove, turned on all 4 burners, let the blue flames push back the freezing air that had invaded every corner of the diner. Better, she asked. Callum nodded against her chest. His fingers clutched her shirt. Mama, when's the heat coming back? Soon, baby. You said that yesterday. I know. And the day before. I know, Callum. She closed her eyes, felt the weight of every promise she couldn't keep. Mama's working on it. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She didn't want to look. She'd stopped wanting to look at her phone 3 weeks ago. But she looked anyway. She always looked. First National Bank. Your mortgage payment is 60 days past due. Final notice before foreclosure proceedings begin. She deleted it. The phone buzzed again immediately. Midwest Electric. Service disconnection scheduled for December 26th. Account 60 days delinquent. She deleted that too. Mama, who's texting? Nobody important. Is it Daddy? The question stopped her heart. 8 months. Callum still asked about Garrett every single day. Like if he asked enough times, the answer might change. No, sweetheart, it's not Daddy. When's Daddy coming home? Daddy's not coming home. We talked about this. But Christmas is when families are together. Teacher said so. Reese held him tighter, felt his small heart beating against her chest. We're a family. You and me. That's enough. But I want, please, her voice cracked. Not tonight. He went quiet. That terrible wounded quiet that meant she'd hurt him by loving him too fiercely. She hated herself for it. Hated Garrett more. Hated the whole situation that made her snap at a 2-year-old for wanting his father. The phone rang. Not a text this time. An actual call. She looked at the screen, debated not answering, answered anyway because maybe somehow it would be something good. Maybe just once the universe would throw her a rope instead of another anchor. Mrs. Bennett, this is Rebecca from First National Bank. It's 11 o'clock at night. I'm aware of the time. I'm calling because your account has been flagged for immediate action. On Christmas Eve. You're calling me about money on Christmas Eve. Ma'am, you're 60 days behind on your mortgage. If we don't receive payment by January 15th, I know, you've told me 6 times. Then you understand the severity of the situation. What I understand, Reese said, her hand shaking so hard she almost dropped the phone, is that my heat is broken, my son is freezing, and you people won't leave me alone for one single night. Mrs. Bennett, I don't have the money. I don't know when I'll have the money. Calling me at 11 p.m. on Christmas Eve isn't going to change that. She hung up. Callum stared at her with eyes too wide for a 2-year-old, eyes that had seen his mother scared too many times. Mama, you yelled. I'm sorry, baby. Mama's just tired. Are we in trouble? No. She forced a smile. The lying to your child smile that every parent learns. No, we're fine. Everything's fine. She carried him to the corner behind the counter where she'd made a bed out of every blanket she owned. The diner was warmer than the apartment upstairs. The stove helped. The residual heat from today's cooking helped. So this is where they slept now, like refugees, in their own home. Mama, is Santa still coming? The question shattered what was left of her heart. She had no presents, not one. She'd planned to grab something from the dollar store. Even that had been impossible. $7.12, minus what she needed for milk and bread tomorrow. Santa knows we've had a hard year, baby. He might not bring as much as usual. That's okay. Callum snuggled into the blankets, into the nest she'd made from desperation and love. I already know what I want. What's that? I want Daddy to come home. Can Santa do that? Reese couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but kiss his forehead and pull the blankets up to his chin. Close your eyes, sweetheart. Mama. Yes, I love you. I love you too, baby. More than all the stars in the sky. She sang to him, the lullaby her mother used to sing, about mockingbirds and diamond rings and all the things parents promise their children even when they can't deliver. Her voice cracked on every third word, but Callum's breathing slowed. His little body relaxed. Sleep took him somewhere warmer than this. She stood up, walked to the window, pressed her forehead against the cold glass. What am I going to do, Mama? She whispered to no one. To the ghost of Ann Bennett, who'd been gone 2 years now. I'm drowning out here. Cancer. Quick and cruel. 1 month her mother was laughing in this very kitchen teaching Reese the family recipes. The next month she was gone. Food made with love can heal any wound, Ann used to say. Remember that, Reese. When everything else fails, you can always feed people. Reese walked to the refrigerator, pulled down the old wooden recipe box. Her mother's handwriting covered every card. Fried chicken, beef stew, apple pie. Recipes passed down through 3 generations of Bennett women who'd known how to turn nothing into something. Maybe tomorrow, she said. Maybe I'll try tomorrow. The clock on the wall read 11:47 p.m., 13 minutes until Christmas. 13 minutes until it would officially be the worst Christmas of her life. She sat down at the counter. Did something she hadn't done in months. She prayed. God, if you're listening, I need help. I'm not asking for a miracle. Just something, anything. A sign that I'm not completely alone. The wind howled outside. The building creaked, nothing else. Yeah, she laughed bitterly. That's what I thought. 11:52 p.m., a knock at the door made her jump. We're closed, she called out. Another knock, harder. I said we're closed. Reese Bennett, a woman's voice, sharp, hostile. Open this door right now. Reese recognized that voice. Judith Sterling, the neighbor who'd made her life miserable for 2 years. The woman who'd filed complaints with the county, the health department, and the city council. The woman who'd stood at the last neighborhood meeting and said that Bennett's diner was destroying property values and that having someone like Reese in the neighborhood was an embarrassment. She unlocked the door. Mrs. Sterling, it's almost midnight. What do you... I want you gone. Excuse me. I've filed complaints with everyone who will listen. Judith's face twisted with contempt. This eyesore of a business is destroying our property values. And frankly, having someone like you in the neighborhood is a disgrace. Someone like me, a single mother, living off government assistance, no doubt, probably don't even know who the father is. Reese's blood went cold. His name is Garrett Cole. We were married for 4 years. He left me for his secretary. Of course he did. Can you blame him? Get off my property. This won't be your property much longer. I've seen the foreclosure notices. Everyone has. By spring you'll be gone and my street can finally be respectable again. I said get off my property. Merry Christmas, Reese. Enjoy it while you can. The door slammed. Reese stood there, trembling, her nails cutting into her palms. Behind her, Callum started crying. She ran to him. Baby, what's wrong? The mean lady woke me up. Why was she yelling? She's not a happy person, sweetheart. Some people are like that. She said we have to leave. Do we have to leave? No. Reese pulled him into her arms, held him like she could shield him from every cruel word in the world. No, we're not going anywhere. This is our home. Promise, I promise. But even as she said it, she wondered if she was lying. 11:58 p.m. That's when she heard it. A sound like thunder, except thunder didn't happen in snowstorms. It started low, almost like a vibration in her chest. Then it grew, louder, closer. A rumble that shook the windows and made the dishes rattle in their racks. Mama, what's that noise? Reese ran to the window. Headlights, dozens of them, cutting through the blizzard like searchlights. And behind them, shapes emerging from the darkness. Motorcycles, one after another, after another. Oh my God. They kept coming. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 bikes pulled into her parking lot. The engines cut. The sudden silence was worse than the noise. Reese watched the riders dismount. Big men, leather jackets, chains, and on their backs, illuminated by her diner's flickering sign, she saw the patches. A skull with wings. 2 words underneath. Hell's Angels. Callum, stay here. Mama, I'm scared. Stay here. She grabbed the baseball bat she kept behind the counter. Her hands shook so badly she could barely hold it. The first biker reached her door. He was enormous. 6.5 feet tall, gray beard frozen solid, scars across his face like a roadmap of violence. He raised one massive fist, knocked. Please. His voice was raw, desperate. Please, we need help. Reese didn't move, didn't breathe. Our brother's hurt bad, real bad. He's going to die if we don't get him warm. Behind him, 2 bikers carried a third. The man's head lolled back, his face white as paper, his lips blue. Please, lady, I'm begging you. Reese looked at the patch on his jacket. She looked at the unconscious man. She looked at her son peeking out from behind the counter. Mama, Callum whispered. They look cold. 25 Hell's Angels, the most feared motorcycle gang in America, and her 2-year-old son's first instinct was compassion. Reese put down the bat. She opened the door. Bring him in. The relief on the giant's face almost broke her heart. God bless you, ma'am. God bless you. They flooded into her diner. 25 frozen, desperate people who smelled like leather and gasoline and fear. They moved fast, helping each other to booze and chairs, stomping feeling back into frozen feet. Put him by the stove, Reese ordered. What's his name? Declan. The giant was right behind her. I'm Magnus Wolf. What happened? Ice about 10 miles back. Bike went down. He hit his head. We couldn't get him warm. He stopped shivering about 20 minutes ago. Reese's stomach dropped. She'd taken enough first aid classes to know what that meant. When hypothermia victims stopped shivering, they were dying. Has anyone called 911? No signal. A woman's voice. Reese turned, a tough-looking biker with gray-streaked hair and kind eyes. Storm knocked everything out. I'm Nina. Used to be a nurse. Used to be... Long story. Right now, Declan needs medication, anti-inflammatory for the brain swelling. Nina shook her head. Without it, I've seen this before. He's got maybe 2 hours. There's a pharmacy in town, 3 miles. 3 miles in this, Magnus gestured at the window where the blizzard howled like a living thing. That's suicide. I've driven that road 1,000 times. Lady, you don't even know us. Why would you? Because he's dying. Reese grabbed her coat. And because it's Christmas. Mama. Callum had crept out from behind the counter. He walked straight up to Magnus, this terrifying giant, and tugged on his jacket. Are you a bad guy? Magnus knelt down slowly. Do I look like a bad guy? A little bit. Fair enough. Magnus almost smiled. But I promise you, little man, we're not here to hurt anyone. We just needed help. And your mama was brave enough to open the door. Mama's the bravest person ever. Yeah, Magnus looked at Reese. I'm starting to figure that out. Reese knelt beside her son. Callum, I need you to stay here and be good, okay? Mama has to go get medicine for the sick man. You're going out in the snow. Just for a little while, but it's scary out there. I know, baby, but sometimes we have to do scary things to help people. Callum threw his arms around her neck. I love you, Mama. I love you too, so much. She stood up. Magnus was blocking the door. I can't let you do this. You can't stop me. At least let me come with you. You're half frozen, you'll slow me down. She met his eyes. Take care of my son. That's what you can do. Magnus stared at her for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket, pulled out a leather patch, the Hell's Angels emblem. Take this. Anyone wearing our colors sees that they'll die before they let anything happen to you. Reese tucked it into her coat. If I'm not back in an hour, you'll be back. Magnus's voice was absolute. People like you don't quit. Reese opened the door. The cold hit her like a physical assault, stole her breath, burned her skin. She ran for her truck. The engine wouldn't turn over. Once, twice. Come on, she begged. Please, not now. Third try, nothing. Please, fourth try. The engine caught, sputtered, roared to life. Reese threw it into gear, pulled out into the storm. She couldn't see. The windshield wipers were losing the battle against the snow. The road was nothing but a white void. She drove by memory, by instinct, by sheer desperate will. The truck slid. She corrected. It slid again. She corrected again. You can do this, she told herself. For Declan, for Callum, for everyone who said you'd never amount to anything. Mile 1, mile 2. The truck hit a patch of ice, spun. Reese screamed as the world whirled around her. Headlights sweeping across trees and snowbanks. The truck stopped inches from the ditch. Her hands shook so badly she could barely grip the wheel. Don't stop. Don't you dare stop. Mile 3. Miller's pharmacy appeared through the storm like a ghost. Dark, locked, buried in snow. Reese pounded on the side door until her knuckles bled. Mr. Miller, please. It's an emergency. Nothing. Mr. Miller. A light came on upstairs. The door cracked open. Harold Miller was 82 years old, mean as a snake, and proud of it. He'd lived in Pinewood his whole life, never had a kind word for anyone, especially not struggling single mothers. Reese Bennett, have you lost your mind? There's a man dying at my diner. He needs medication. Please. Dying what kind of man? Does it matter? It matters to me. I heard motorcycles earlier. Bikers. Probably criminals. Drug addicts. He's a human being. So were the thugs who robbed my store last year. So was the drunk driver who killed my Emily. Harold's face hardened. Not everyone deserves saving, girl. Your wife Emily would be ashamed of you. The words came out before Reese could stop them. She watched Harold's face go pale. Don't you dare. She was the kindest woman I ever knew. She gave me candy when I was little. She told me to always choose kindness, no matter what. Reese stepped closer. What would she say if she could see you now, letting a stranger die on Christmas because you're too bitter to care? Harold's hand trembled on the door. His eyes were wet. Emily believed in you, Reese pressed. She believed there was good in you. Was she wrong? Silence. The snow fell. The wind howled. Harold Miller stepped aside. Third shelf on the left. Take what you need. Reese ran inside, grabbed everything Nina had described, shoved it into a bag. Mr. Miller, just go, and his voice cracked, and tell them Merry Christmas from Emily. She drove back through the storm faster than she'd come. The truck fishtailed twice, slid once, nearly plowed into a snowbank. She didn't care. All that mattered was getting back. When she burst through the diner door, Nina was already waiting. Give me everything. 20 minutes later, Declan's color was coming back. 40 minutes later, his eyes fluttered open. Where am I? You're safe, brother. Magnus was at his side instantly. You're safe because of her. Declan's gaze found Reese. You. His voice was barely a whisper. Merry Christmas. He started to cry. This tough tattooed biker sobbed like a child while his brothers gathered around him. And Reese Bennett stood in the middle of her tiny diner, realizing she had just done something impossible. Callum tugged on her coat. Mama. Yes, baby. I'm proud of you. Reese dropped to her knees, held him so tight she thought she might never let go. Behind her, Magnus was making a phone call. Yeah, it's me. Listen, something happened tonight. Something big. He paused. Spread the word. Every chapter. Every brother. 3 days. Pinewood, Minnesota. Another pause. Trust me, they'll want to see this for themselves. He hung up, caught Reese's eye. What was that about? She asked. Magnus smiled. It was almost frightening. You saved one of us tonight, Reese Bennett. That means something in our world. That means everything. I don't need anything. It's not about what you need, it's about what you deserve. He looked around at his brothers, all 24 of them watching with something like awe. Christmas is in 13 minutes. How about we make it one worth remembering? What happened next would become legend. The bikers cooked, they cleaned, they built a Christmas tree out of spare parts and decorated it with bandanas and patches. They sang carols badly and beautifully. They took turns holding Callum, who had adopted all of them as his new best friends. And when midnight struck, Magnus raised a glass of terrible instant coffee and made a toast. To Reese Bennett, the bravest woman any of us have ever met. To Reese, 25 voices roared. Callum clapped his hands. Best Christmas ever. Reese looked around at this room full of strangers who somehow felt like family. For the first time in 8 months, she didn't feel alone. She had no idea what was coming. She had no idea that in 3 days, 1,500 motorcycles would shake her tiny diner to its foundations. She had no idea that her simple act of kindness was about to change everything. But right now, in this moment, surrounded by people who had been strangers just hours ago, Reese Bennett finally allowed herself to hope. And outside, the storm raged on. But inside, something new was being born. Magnus's phone buzzed. He checked it, smiled wider. Who is it? Reese asked. The first response. Detroit chapter. They're in. In for what? His eyes gleamed. You'll see. Another buzz. Then another. Then the phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Chicago's in. Milwaukee's in. Cleveland, Cincinnati, St. Louis. They're all in. Magnus, what's happening? He looked at her. His smile was almost gentle. You opened your door to 25 strangers tonight, Reese. In 3 days, you're going to find out what happens when 1,500 of us say thank you. Reese's heart stopped. 1,500. Maybe more. Magnus tucked his phone away. Get some sleep. You're going to need it. He walked away, left Reese standing in the middle of her diner, surrounded by sleeping bikers and Christmas decorations made of leather and chrome. Callum tugged her hand. Mama are more of Santa's helpers coming. Reese looked at her son, then at the window, then at the phone in Magnus's pocket that was still lighting up with messages. Yeah, baby, she whispered. I think they are. She had no idea how right she was. The sun rose on Christmas morning, but Reese hadn't slept at all. She sat at the counter, watching the bikers sprawled across her diner floor. Some snored, some muttered in their sleep. Magnus sat upright in a booth, eyes closed but clearly not sleeping, like a guard dog on duty. Declan was breathing normally now. Nina had stayed by his side all night, checking his pulse every 30 minutes. You should rest. Reese jumped. Magnus had opened his eyes. I can't, she said, too much in my head. The phone calls. 1,500 people, Magnus. Where would they even park? That's not your problem. It's my diner. We take care of our own. He stood up, stretched, muscles cracked like gunfire. Speaking of which, we need to talk about your heater. It's broken. I noticed. Tommy, a younger biker, jerked awake. Yeah, boss. You still know your way around an HVAC system? Spent 10 years installing them before I got my patch. Good. Fix it. Tommy was on his feet before Reese could protest. Wait, I can't pay for... Did anyone ask you for money? Magnus's voice was gentle but firm. You saved Declan's life. You fed us. You opened your door when any sane person would have locked it. The least we can do is make sure your kid doesn't freeze. But, Reese, Magnus put a hand on her shoulder. Let us help. That's what family does. Family. The word hit her harder than she expected. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Callum woke up an hour later. Christmas morning became something Reese never could have imagined. The bikers had nothing to give, but they gave everything they had. Thunder carved a toy motorcycle out of a piece of wood he found in the back. Nina braided Callum's hair into tiny roses, made him giggle. A biker named Demon, who looked like he could kill a man with his bare hands, spent an hour teaching Callum how to make shadow puppets on the wall. Look, Mama, a bunny. That's beautiful, baby. Demon taught me. Demon's my friend now. Demon, covered in skull tattoos and prison ink, blushed like a schoolboy. Kids are natural. By noon, Tommy had the heater running, the diner filled with warm air for the first time in weeks. Callum ran around in circles, shouting about how he wasn't cold anymore. Reese found herself crying. She couldn't stop. Hey, Nina appeared beside her. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. That's the problem. Reese wiped her eyes. I've been struggling for so long, fighting every day just to survive. And now these strangers show up and fix everything in a few hours. Like it's nothing. It's not nothing. It's what we do. But why you don't even know me? Nina was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you something? Of course. 15 years ago, I was you. Single mom, broke, desperate. My daughter was sick and I couldn't afford her medicine. I was about to do something stupid, something permanent. Reese's breath caught. A group of angels found me on the side of the road. I'd run out of gas, run out of hope, run out of everything. Nina's eyes were wet. They didn't ask questions. They just helped, filled my tank, gave me money for the medicine, followed me to make sure I got home safe. Nina, that's why I wear this patch now, because sometimes the people the world calls monsters are the only ones who show up when you need them. You gave us shelter last night, Reese, but more than that, you gave us a chance to be the people we want to be. That's worth more than you know. The moment was interrupted by shouting outside. What the hell is this? Reese recognized that voice. Judith Sterling. She rushed to the door. Her neighbor stood in the parking lot, surrounded by motorcycles, her face purple with rage. I knew it. I knew you were trouble. Judith pointed at the bikes. Gang members, criminals, in our neighborhood. Magnus stepped out of the diner. Ma'am, we don't want any trouble. Then get out, all of you, before I call the police. Go ahead. Call them. Magnus's voice was calm. We haven't broken any laws. You're trespassing. We're guests. There's a difference. Judith turned to Reese. This is your fault. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what kind of person you are, consorting with thugs, putting the whole neighborhood at risk. These people saved my life, Reese said quietly. What? I drove through that blizzard last night to get medicine for a dying man. I almost didn't make it back. And these thugs fixed my heater, played with my son, treated me with more kindness than anyone in this neighborhood ever has. Reese stepped closer to her neighbor. So go ahead and call whoever you want. Tell them whatever you want, but I'm done being ashamed of asking for help. Judith's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Merry Christmas, Judith. Reese turned, walked back inside, left her neighbor speechless in the snow. The bikers erupted in cheers. That was incredible, Declan said. He'd managed to sit up, still weak but grinning. You just told off the neighborhood witch. She's not a witch, she's just scared. Scared of what? Everything she doesn't understand. Magnus nodded slowly. That's a generous way to look at it. My mother used to say that mean people are just scared people who never learned a better way to cope. Reese shrugged. I don't know if it's true, but it helps me not hate them. Your mother sounds like she was something special. She was everything. The afternoon brought an unexpected visitor. A truck pulled into the parking lot. Harold Miller climbed out, carrying 2 large boxes. Reese met him at the door. Mr. Miller, what are you doing here? I couldn't sleep last night. The old man looked different somehow, softer. Kept thinking about what you said, about Emily. I'm sorry if I was too harsh. You weren't harsh enough. Harold thrust the boxes toward her. Medical supplies, bandages, antibiotics, pain medication. Figured your friend might need them. Mr. Miller, I can't accept. It's not for you. It's for Emily. His voice cracked. She always said I was too hard on people, too quick to judge. Last night you showed me what she meant. He looked past Reese to the room full of bikers. I've been scared my whole life, scared of anyone different from me. Emily tried to teach me better, but I was too stubborn to learn. It's never too late. Maybe not. Harold straightened his shoulders. I also wanted to tell you that I made some calls this morning, to the city council, to the health department, to everyone Judith Sterling contacted. Reese's stomach dropped, and I told them that Reese Bennett runs a clean legal business, and that anyone who tries to shut her down will have to go through me first. Reese couldn't speak. Don't look so surprised. Harold almost smiled. I may be old, but I still know a few people in this town. Judith's complaints are going in the trash where they belong. Why would you do this for me? Because my wife would have wanted me to. He glanced at Callum, who was showing Demon his toy truck. And because that boy deserves a chance, just like my grandchildren did before they stopped speaking to me. They stopped speaking to you, Bumwell. My son married a woman I didn't approve of. Different background, different beliefs. I said things I can't take back. And now I haven't seen my grandchildren in 6 years. Harold's eyes were wet. Don't make my mistake, Reese. Don't let fear steal your family. He turned to leave. Mr. Miller. He stopped. Would you like to stay for dinner? We're making my mother's fried chicken. The old man stood frozen for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. I'd like that very much. Dinner that night was chaos in the best possible way. 25 bikers, one old pharmacist, one exhausted mother, and one very excited toddler crammed into the tiny diner. Shared a meal that Ann Bennett would have been proud of. The fried chicken disappeared in minutes. The mashed potatoes, the gravy, the biscuits, everything Reese made was devoured with sounds of pure joy. This is unbelievable, Declan said, reaching for his third piece. Where did you learn to cook like this? My mother, she had a little restaurant when I was young. What happened to it? The neighborhood changed. Customers stopped coming. She had to close. Reese looked around the diner. I thought I could bring it back. Start fresh. But nobody wants to eat at a restaurant run by a struggling single mom in a bad location. Magnus set down his fork. Reese, can I be honest with you? Of course, Joe. This food is the best I've ever had. I'm not saying that to be nice. I'm saying it because it's true. If you were in the right location with the right support, you'd have lines out the door. That's a nice dream. It doesn't have to be a dream. Before Reese could ask what he meant, his phone buzzed. He looked at it, stood up. I need to take this. Excuse me. He stepped outside. Through the window, Reese watched him pace back and forth, speaking urgently into the phone. Something's happening, Nina said quietly. What do you mean? I've known Magnus for 20 years. I've never seen him this excited. 5 minutes later, Magnus came back inside. His face was unreadable. Reese, how would you feel about some company tomorrow? More company, just a few. A few, like 5, or a few, like 50. Magnus didn't answer. His smile said everything. Reese barely slept that night either. The bikers had insisted on taking turns keeping watch, claiming the storm might have attracted attention from people with bad intentions. Reese suspected they just wanted to make sure she felt safe. She sat by Callum's bed, watching him sleep, thinking about everything that had happened in the past 48 hours. 48 hours ago, she had been counting her last $7. Now her heater was fixed. Her complaints were dismissed. She had a diner full of people who actually cared about her, and apparently more were coming. You're still awake. Declan stood in the doorway, leaning against the frame for support. So are you. Should you be out of bed? Probably not, but I wanted to talk to you. He moved slowly to sit beside her. I never thanked you properly. You don't have to. Yes, I do. His voice was serious. You risked your life for me, a complete stranger, someone everyone told you to be afraid of. You needed help. Lots of people need help. Most people don't get it. Declan was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you something? Of course. I joined the Angels because I had nowhere else to go. My parents wanted me to be a lawyer, like my dad, and his dad before him. When I dropped out of law school, they told me I was dead to them. That's terrible. I was homeless for a while, sleeping in shelters, eating out of dumpsters. The Angels found me at my lowest point, gave me a family. He looked at her. That's why what you did matters so much. You saw past the leather and the patches. You saw a person who needed help. My mother always said that everyone deserves compassion. She sounds amazing. She really was. What about your father? Reese's jaw tightened. He left when I was 7. Haven't seen him since. I'm sorry. Don't be, he taught me an important lesson. What's that? That leaving is easy. Staying is what takes courage. She looked at Callum. That's why I'll never abandon my son, no matter how hard things get. I'll fight until my last breath before I let him feel what I felt. Declan reached out, took her hand. You're not alone anymore, Reese. I know we just met, but I mean what I said. You're family now. family. The next morning started quietly. Reese made breakfast for the bikers while Callum showed off his new shadow puppet skills to anyone who would watch. The atmosphere was relaxed, almost peaceful. Then the first rumble came. "Here we go," Magnus said, standing up. "Here we go, what, Magnus? What's happening?" He walked to the window, looked out. A slow smile spread across his face. "Come see for yourself." Reese joined him at the window. Her heart stopped. Motorcycles, dozens of them, streaming down the highway toward her diner, like a river of chrome and leather. "That's the Detroit chapter," Magnus said. 32 riders. 32? That's just the beginning. More bikes appeared, then more. The parking lot filled up. The street filled up. Bikes spilled onto the empty lot next door and kept coming. Milwaukee chapter, 41, Chicago, 57, Cleveland, 38. Reese couldn't breathe. "Magnus, how many people did you call?" "I didn't call anyone. I just told them what you did." He turned to face her. "Word spreads fast in our world, Reese. When someone saves one of us, everyone wants to say thank you." The noise was deafening now. Engines roaring, horns honking, people shouting greetings to each other. Callum ran to the window, his eyes huge. Mama, look at all the motorcycles." "I see them, baby." "Are they all Santa's helpers?" Reese laughed despite herself. "Yes, sweetheart, I think they are." A massive man covered in tattoos pushed through the door. He looked around the diner until his eyes found Reese. "Which one of you is the lady who saved Declan?" "I am." He crossed the room in 3 strides, wrapped her in a bear hug so tight she couldn't breathe. "I'm Vincent, Detroit chapter president. Declan is my nephew." His voice broke. "You saved my boy. I don't care what it costs. I'm paying you back." "I don't want money." "Not money, better than money." Vincent released her, turned to face the crowd of bikers now spilling through the door. "Listen up. This woman needs help. Her diner's falling apart. Her neighbors are giving her hell. And from what I hear, she makes the best damn fried chicken in America." Cheers erupted. "So here's what we're going to do. We're going to fix this place up. We're going to spread the word, and we're going to make sure that anyone who messes with Reese Bennett answers to every hell's angel in the Midwest." More cheers. Someone started a chant. "Reese, Reese, Reese." She stood in the middle of the chaos, overwhelmed, tears streaming down her face. Magnus appeared at her side. "Breathe." "I can't." "Yes, you can. This is just the beginning. The beginning of what? Your new life." And Reese Bennett, standing in her broken-down diner on December 27th, surrounded by 1,500 of the most dangerous and most generous people in America, finally understood. She had opened a door 3 nights ago, and through that door, everything had changed. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out. Not thinking, just reacting. A text message from a number she hadn't seen in 8 months. Her blood turned to ice. "Hey, Reese, saw you on the news. Looks like things are going p.m. We should talk about custody. I'll be there tomorrow. Garrett." The world stopped. The cheers faded. The motorcycles disappeared. All Reese could see were those words. We should talk about custody. Garrett was coming back, and he wanted her son. Reese's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She read the message again and again. Each time the words cut deeper. "Hey, Reese, saw you on the news. Looks like things are going well. We should talk about custody. I'll be there tomorrow. Garrett." "Reese," Declan's voice came from behind her. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." She couldn't answer, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Declan took the phone from her trembling hands. His face hardened as he read the message. "Who's Garrett?" "My ex-husband. The one who left you. The one who abandoned us 8 months ago. Hasn't paid a dime of child support. Hasn't called once to check on Callum." Reese's voice cracked. "And now he wants custody. Can he do that legally?" "I don't know. I don't know anything about law. I don't have a lawyer. I can't afford—" "Hey," Declan grabbed her shoulders. "Stop, breathe. We're going to figure this out. How he saw me on the news. He saw the money, the support, everything. That's why he's coming back. Not for Callum, for what Callum can get him. Then we'll make sure he doesn't get anything." "With what my good intentions," Reese laughed bitterly. "He has a real job, a real apartment, probably a lawyer already lined up. What do I have? A rundown diner and a bunch of bikers who will be gone by morning. You have family now. That counts for something. Family doesn't win custody battles. Declan was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled out his own phone. What are you doing? Calling Magnus. He needs to know about this. Declan, no. This isn't his problem. Everything about you is our problem now. That's what family means. 5 minutes later, Magnus was standing in front of her, his face like thunder. When's he coming? Tomorrow. He didn't say what time. And he wants custody. That's what the message says. Magnus pulled out a chair, sat down heavily. Tell me about him. Everything. Reese took a deep breath. Garrett Cole. We met in college. He was charming, ambitious. I thought he was everything I ever wanted. She paused. We got married right after graduation. I got pregnant with Callum a year later. That's when things started to change. Change how? He became distant, started working late, coming home smelling like perfume that wasn't mine. Reese's jaw tightened. I confronted him. He denied it. Then I found the texts on his phone. He was cheating 2 years with his secretary, a 23-year-old named Amber who thought married men were exciting. When I told him I knew he didn't apologize. He didn't beg for forgiveness. He just said, I guess we're done then, and walked out. He left you with a baby. Callum was 18 months old. Garrett didn't even look at him before he left. Declan's hands were clenched so tight his knuckles were white. And the child support, the court ordered him to pay. He never did. I tried to enforce it, but he moved to California. Different jurisdiction, different rules. By the time the paperwork caught up with him, I was too broke to keep fighting. Magnus leaned forward. So he abandons you, abandons his son, doesn't pay a cent for 8 months, and now he wants custody. He doesn't want Callum. He wants what Callum represents, money, leverage, a way to get his hands on whatever I've built. Reese's eyes were wet but fierce. He saw the news coverage. He saw the donations. He thinks if he threatens to take Callum, I'll pay him to go away. Will you? I don't have anything to give him, not yet, but he doesn't know that. Vincent had joined them, his massive arms crossed over his chest. I know a lawyer, Margaret Brennan, best family law attorney in the Midwest. Doesn't mind getting her hands dirty. I can't afford a lawyer. Did I ask you to pay Vincent? Reese, you saved my nephew's life. There's nothing I wouldn't do for you. His voice softened. A lawyer is the easy part. Reese wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could handle this herself, but she was so tired, so scared, and for once in her life she let herself accept help. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Callum came running up, oblivious to the tension. Mama Tiny taught me a new shadow puppet. It's a dragon. Reese scooped him up, holding him tight. That's wonderful, baby. Why are you sad, Mama? I'm not sad, I'm just tired. You're squeezing me really hard. She loosened her grip. Sorry, sweetheart. Mama just loves you so much. I love you too, Mama. Callum patted her face with his tiny hand. Don't be scared. The motorcycle angels will protect us. Reese looked at Magnus, at Vincent, at Declan, at the hundreds of bikers still milling around outside. Yeah, baby, she said. I think they will. But that night alone in the darkness, Reese sat by Callum's bed and whispered a different prayer. I won't let him take you. I swear on my life, I won't let him take you. You won't have to. She turned. Declan stood in the doorway. You should be resting. Your head. My head is fine, you're not. He sat down beside her. Talk to me. What's there to talk about? My ex-husband is coming to destroy my life again. He's not going to destroy anything. We won't let him. You keep saying that. But Declan, you don't know Garrett. He's smart. He's manipulative. He knows how to work the system. So do we. This is different. This is legal. This is courts and judges and paperwork. Your leather jackets don't mean anything there. Declan was quiet for a moment. You know why I dropped out of law school? You said your parents wanted you to be a lawyer. That's part of it. But the real reason is that I saw how the system worked. Rich people hiring expensive lawyers to crush poor people who couldn't fight back. Fathers using courts to punish mothers who dared to leave them. Justice for sale to the highest bidder. His jaw tightened. It made me sick. I couldn't be part of it. So you joined a motorcycle gang instead? I joined a family that actually cared about people. He looked at her. But I still remember everything I learned. And I know how to fight dirty when I have to. What are you saying? I'm saying that Garrett isn't the only one who can play games. We have resources now. We have connections. We have 1,500 witnesses who can testify that you're an amazing mother. Declan's eyes were fierce. He thinks he can waltz back in and take your son. He's wrong. He's so wrong. Declan, Reese, I've only known you for a few days, but I've never met anyone like you. You risked your life for a stranger. You fed 1,000 bikers with nothing but your grandmother's recipes in your own 2 hands. You turned enemies into friends, strangers into family. He took her hand. That's not someone who loses. That's someone who wins every single time. Reese wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that everything would work out, but she'd trusted Garrett once. And look how that ended. What if you're wrong? Then we'll figure something else out. Together. Declan squeezed her hand. You're not alone anymore, Reese. Stop acting like you are. The morning came too fast. Reese was in the kitchen, stress cooking, when the first bikers started leaving. They came by one, to say goodbye, to promise they'd be back, to stuff more money into the donation jar that now sat on the counter. You call if you need anything, Vincent said, wrapping her in one last crushing hug. I mean it, anything, day or night, I'll be here. Thank you, Vincent, for everything. Thank my nephew. If he hadn't crashed his bike in front of your diner, none of this would have happened. Worst, best accident of my life, Declan said from behind them. By noon, most of the bikers were gone. Only about 30 remained, including Magnus, Declan, Nina, and a few others who had decided to stay and help. Magnus pulled Reese aside before the others dispersed completely. Before everyone scatters, there's something you need to know. He handed her a manila envelope. What's this? Open it. Reese's hands shook as she pulled out the document inside. A property deed to the empty lot next door, the one where 1,500 motorcycles had been parked just hours ago. We bought it, Magnus said quietly. All of us, every chapter chipped in. Detroit, Chicago, Milwaukee, all of them. I don't understand. It's yours, Reese, free and clear, for the restaurant expansion. Your name's on the deed. Magnus, I can't accept this. You already did. It's been in your name for a week. We just wanted to tell you in person. Vincent stepped forward. You gave us back our brother. We're giving you your future. Reese stared at the document, at her name printed in official ink. Owner of land, of possibility, of something she'd never dreamed of having. This is too much. It's never enough, Magnus said. Not for what you did for us. She couldn't speak, could only hold the deed and cry while 30 bikers watched with something like pride. We'll help you build it, Vincent promised. Won't cost you a cent, just your mama's fried chicken recipe and a place at the table when it's done. Through her tears, Reese nodded, and then a silver BMW pulled into the parking lot. Reese's stomach dropped. That's him, she said. That's Garrett's car. Magnus moved to stand beside him. You want us to handle this? No, I need to face him myself. You sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. The car door opened. Garrett Cole stepped out. He looked good. That was the worst part. Expensive suit, perfect hair, designer sunglasses. He looked like he'd spent the last 8 months at a spa instead of abandoning his family. And beside him, tottering on ridiculous heels, was a young woman with too much makeup and not enough clothes. That's her, Reese said flatly. Amber, the secretary. Garrett spotted Reese, smiled. That same smile that had made her fall in love with him 10 years ago. That same smile that now made her want to throw up. He walked toward her with open arms, like he was expecting a hug. Reese, look at you, you look amazing. Don't touch me. He stopped, hands falling to his sides. Okay, I understand you're angry. Angry doesn't begin to cover it. I know I have a lot to explain. You have nothing to explain. Your actions explained everything. Reese crossed her arms. What do you want, Garrett? Can we talk inside privately? No, whatever you have to say, you can say in front of my friends. Garrett glanced at the bikers, His smile faltered slightly. These are your friends, interesting company you're keeping these days. Better company than I kept when I was married to you. Amber stepped forward. Hi, I'm Amber. Garrett's told me so much about you. Reese stared at her. I'm sure he has. He said you were difficult, but you seem nice. Amber, honey, why don't you wait in the car? Garrett's voice was strained. But I wanted to meet the baby. Garrett said he's adorable. Now, Amber. The young woman pouted, but retreated to the BMW. Garrett turned back to Reese, his mask firmly in place. I see you've been busy. The news coverage was impressive. I didn't do it for the coverage. No, of course not. You did it out of the goodness of your heart. He smiled again. That's what I always loved about you, Reese, your heart. Too bad it wasn't enough to keep our marriage together. Our marriage fell apart because you couldn't keep your pants on. That's a very simplistic view of a complex situation. It's not complex at all. You cheated, you lied, you left. End of story. Garrett sighed. I didn't come here to relitigate the past. I came to talk about Callum's future. Callum's future is with me. Is it a single mother with no stable income, living above a failing diner, surrounded by motorcycle gang members? Garrett shook his head. What judge would think that's a suitable environment for a child? A judge who looks at the facts, like the fact that you abandoned him, that you haven't paid child support in 8 months, that you haven't even called to check on him. I've been going through a difficult time, finding myself, healing from the trauma of our divorce. The trauma of our divorce. Reese's voice was shaking now. You're the one who caused it. Garrett's voice hardened. Let's be reasonable here. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. The easy way is you give me $50,000 and I sign away my parental rights. The hard way is we go to court and I fight for custody. Reese felt the blood drain from her face. You want money. That's what this is about. I prefer to think of it as compensation for the years I invested in our relationship. You invested, I gave up my career for you. I supported you through graduate school. I raised your son alone while you were sleeping with your secretary. See, this is what I mean about you being difficult. Garrett checked his watch. I'll give you 24 hours to think about it. 50,000 and you never see me again. Otherwise, I'll see you in court. He turned to walk back to his car. Garrett, he stopped. What makes you think I have $50,000? The news said you received significant donations. I figured you could spare some for the man who gave you a son. He smiled over his shoulder. 24 hours, Reese. Choose wisely. The BMW pulled away, leaving Reese standing in the parking lot, shaking with rage and fear. Magnus was at her side immediately. We're not giving him anything. He'll take me to court. Let him. We'll destroy him. You heard what he said. Single mother, no stable income, surrounded by gang members. He'll make me look like an unfit parent. And we'll make him look like an abandoning deadbeat who only came back when he smelled money. Magnus's jaw was set. Reese, that man is a parasite. He's counting on you being scared and alone. He doesn't know what he's walked into. Declan appeared with his phone in hand. Vincent's lawyer is on her way, Margaret Brennan. She can be here in 2 hours. 2 hours. She was already in Minneapolis for another case. When Vincent told her what was happening, she dropped everything. Declan looked grim. Her father abandoned her when she was 6. She's made it her life's mission to make sure no child goes through what she did. But Reese wasn't listening. Her mind was spinning, calculating, planning. Declan, she said slowly, you said you remember everything from law school. Most of it, yeah. Could you teach me? Teach you what? How to research, how to build a case, how to find leverage. Declan's eyes widened. Reese Margaret is a professional. She can, I need to do this myself. I need to understand every detail, every weakness, every option. Reese's voice was steel. Garrett thinks I'm helpless. He thinks I'll panic and pay him off. I'm going to prove him wrong. That's a lot of work. I've worked 3 jobs before. I can handle research. Declan studied her face. Then slowly he smiled. Okay, let's do it. But we're doing it smart. Margaret handles the official case. You and I dig for dirt. What kind of dirt? The kind that makes people settle real fast. They spent the afternoon in the back office, Declan teaching Reese how to search court records. how to trace financial documents, how to look for patterns. When someone's this confident, Declan explained, they're usually hiding something. We just need to find it. What if there's nothing to find? There's always something. People like Garrett, they think they're untouchable. That arrogance makes them sloppy. Reese pulled up Garrett's social media, started going through photos, posts, comments. He's living in Los Angeles now, she said. Works at some tech startup. What is the company? Tech Vision Solutions. Declan typed rapidly. Okay, looking at their financial filings. Small company, about 20 employees. Garrett's listed as CFO. He always wanted to be important. The CFO at a startup means he has access to all the money. Declan pulled up another screen. And look at this. They received a major investment around 6 months ago. $3 million. So where did that money go? They dug deeper. Hours passed. Callum played quietly in the corner. Nina brought them food they barely touched. And then Reese found it. Declan, look at this. She turned the laptop toward him, showed him a series of transfers. Small amounts. $50 here, $200 there, but consistent, every week for 5 months. He's siphoning money, Declan breathed. Small enough amounts that it wouldn't trigger automatic alerts. But over time, it adds up to almost $200,000. We need to verify this. Can you access his bank statements? I still have access to our old joint account. He never closed it. He what? He was too lazy to deal with it. The account's dormant, but the login still works. Reese pulled up the bank website, logged in with shaking hands. The account showed a balance of $47. Their joint account. The one they'd opened when they got married. The one that should have been closed years ago. But the transaction history told a different story. Regular deposits from Tech Vision Solutions into this old account. Then immediate transfers out to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. He's not just siphoning, Reese said. He's embezzling, and he's using our old joint account to do it. Declan's face split into a wide grin, which means you have access to all the evidence, legally, because it's a joint account. This could send him to prison. This could destroy him. Reese stared at the screen, at the proof of Garrett's crimes laid out in neat columns of numbers. I've got him. They got him, she whispered. I've actually got him. A knock at the door interrupted them. Magnus poked his head in. Reese, there's someone here to see you. Tell Garrett I'm not interested in talking. It's not Garrett. It's a woman. She says her name is Catherine Price, and she says she's your mother. The world stopped. Reese stood up slowly. My mother is dead. She said you'd say that. She's asking for just 5 minutes of your time. Reese walked to the front of the diner. Her legs felt like they belonged to someone else. A woman stood by the door, late 50s, elegant despite the pallor of illness, graying blonde hair and blue eyes, exactly like Reese's, exactly like Callum's. Reese, the woman's voice broke. Oh God, it's really you. Who are you? My name is Catherine Price. I gave birth to you 31 years ago at St. Mary's Hospital in Chicago. I was 16 years old. My parents forced me to give you up for adoption. Tears streamed down her face. I've been looking for you ever since. Reese couldn't breathe. That's impossible. My mother was Ann Bennett. Ann Bennett adopted you when you were 3 days old. She was a wonderful woman. I hired a private investigator 10 years ago. He told me about her, about how she raised you, how she loved you. Catherine stepped closer. I'm so grateful you had her. But Reese, I'm your biological mother. Why should I believe you? I have documents, birth certificate, hospital records, the bracelet they put on your wrist when you were born. Catherine pulled a folder from her bag, and I'll take a DNA test, whatever you need. Reese's hands shook as she took the folder. Inside was a birth certificate. Baby girl Mitchell, born May 15th, mother Catherine Mitchell. Father unknown, hospital records from St. Mary's. Photos of a teenage girl obviously pregnant trying to smile for the camera. This could be faked, Reese said, but her voice was weak. It could. That's why I'm willing to take a test. I want you to know the truth. Why now? Why after all these years? Catherine's face crumpled. Because I'm dying, Reese. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctors give me 6 months, maybe less. The folder slipped from Reese's hands. I've spent 31 years wondering about you. 31 years of not knowing if you were happy, if you were loved, if you were okay. Catherine's voice broke completely. I couldn't die without seeing your face one more time, without telling you that giving you up was the hardest thing I ever did, and I've regretted it every single day since. Reese stood frozen, torn between the mother who raised her and the mother who gave her life. I need time, she said finally. This is too much. I understand. Take all the time you need. I'm staying at the motel on Route 7, room 12. Catherine turned to leave, then stopped. Reese, I saw you on the news. What you did for that young man, the risk you took, the kindness you showed. Your mother Ann raised you right. I just wanted you to know that I'm proud of you, even though I have no right to be. She walked out into the cold. Declan appeared at Reese's side. You okay? I don't know. My mother never told me I was adopted. She died 2 years ago, and she took that secret to her grave. Maybe she was protecting you. From what? From knowing where I came from feeling like you weren't completely hers. Declan picked up the drop in Monter. DNA test will tell us if she's telling the truth. And if she is, then you'll have to decide what that means to you. The next 3 days were chaos. The DNA test came back. Catherine Price was without question Reese's biological mother. Margaret Brennan arrived, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who listened to Reese's story and then smiled like a wolf. This is going to be fun, she said. Garrett's lawyer called, demanded Margaret's client accept the settlement offer. Margaret laughed and hung up, and Catherine returned, tentatively, asking only to be near, to meet Callum, to be part of whatever time was left. Callum, with the wisdom of children, accepted her immediately. I have 2 grandmas, he asked, his eyes wide. Grandma in heaven and Grandma Catherine. Yes, baby. That's like having superpowers. Catherine dissolved into tears, the good kind, the healing kind. She spent her days at the diner, helping where she could, learning the recipes that Anne had taught Reese, watching Callum play with an expression of such profound gratitude that it broke everyone's heart. Thank you, she said to Reese one evening. Thank you for letting me know you. Know him. He's your grandson. But you didn't have to share him. After everything. Catherine touched Reese's hand. Your mother Anne, she must have been remarkable. She was everything. I'm glad you had her. I'm so glad. Meanwhile, Reese and Declan continued digging. They found more irregularities in Tech Vision's finances. Found evidence that Garrett had falsified expense reports, had created fake vendors, had been stealing from the company for over a year. This is enough, Declan said. This is more than enough. Margaret agreed. She called Garrett's lawyer back. Here's how this is going to go, she said, her voice ice. Your client signs away all parental rights. He pays the full amount of back child support plus interest plus penalties. He never contacts Mrs. Bennett or her son again. And in exchange, we don't send this evidence to the FBI. That's blackmail. No, that's motivation. You have 48 hours. She hung up. Garrett's response came in 46 hours. His lawyer called back, voice defeated. My client accepts your terms. Reese collapsed into a chair, sobbing with relief. It was over. It was really over. Margaret put a gentle hand on her shoulder. And one more thing. That evidence you found, I've already forwarded it to the FBI. Anonymously. What they do with it is up to them. But men like Garrett don't get to walk away clean. But the universe wasn't done with her yet. The next day, a man in a suit arrived at the diner. Inspector Harrison from the county building department. I'm here for the final inspection on your expansion, he said. Expansion. The construction next door, the restaurant. The bikers had been building. Reese had been so focused on Garrett and Catherine that she hadn't paid attention to how much they'd done. I didn't request an inspection yet. Well, someone did. Let's take a look. An hour later, Harrison emerged, his face grim. I'm sorry, Mrs. Bennett, but this building has failed inspection. What? How? What? The electrical system, it's not up to code. You'll need a complete rewiring before I can certify this for business use. But Tommy installed it. He's done this for 10 years. Then Tommy made a mistake. I'm sorry, but you'll need to fix this before you can open. He handed her the failed inspection report, walked to his car. Magnus appeared at Reese's side. Let me see that. He read the report, his face darkened. This is bullshit. Tommy's work is flawless. I've seen it. Then why did we fail? Because someone paid Harrison to fail us. Who would do that? Magnus looked at her. Someone who doesn't want you to succeed. Reese's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Heard about your little setback. Karma's a bitch, isn't it? Maybe you should have just paid me. Gee. Her blood turned to ice. Garrett, she breathed. He paid off the inspector. Can you prove it? No, but I know it's him. The grand opening was scheduled for 3 days from now. The Food Network crew was arriving in 2 days. She had reservations for 200 people, and now she had a failed inspection with no way to fix it in time. Reese stood in the parking lot, surrounded by the bikers who had come to help her, surrounded by family that had appeared when she needed them most. And for the first time since Christmas Eve, she felt completely, utterly defeated. I can't do this, she whispered. I can't keep fighting. Yes, you can. Declan's voice was firm. You're Reese Bennett. You drove through a blizzard to save a stranger. You faced down your ex-husband. You opened your door when everyone else would have locked it. He took her shoulders, made her look at him. You don't quit. That's not who you are. But the inspection, we'll figure it out together. Magnus was already on his phone. I'm calling in favors, getting a second inspector here, someone honest. Will they make it in time? They'll make it. I'll make sure of it. Nina appeared with Catherine, both women's faces set with determination. What can we do? Catherine asked. I don't know, Reese said honestly. I don't know if there's anything anyone can do. Then we'll do everything, Nina said, and we'll hope it's enough. That night, Reese sat with Catherine in the empty diner. I'm sorry you're seeing me like this, Reese said, falling apart. You're not falling apart. You're human. Catherine touched her hand. Can I tell you something? Of course. When I was 16 and pregnant and terrified, I wanted to quit every single day. My parents hated me. The boy I loved had disappeared. I had no money, no future, no hope. What kept you going? You did, knowing you were inside me, knowing you deserved better than a mother who gave up. Catherine's eyes were wet. I gave you away because I loved you, but I never stopped fighting for the life you deserve to have. I don't feel strong right now. Strength isn't about never falling down, Reese. It's about getting back up every single time. Callum wandered out of the back room, rubbing his eyes. Mama, I can't sleep. Reese picked him up. Me neither, baby. Are you still scared? A little bit. Don't be. Callum patted her face. We have the angels. They'll fix it. And Reese Bennett, holding her son in the diner her mother built, surrounded by the family she never expected to find, realized something. Callum was right. She wasn't alone. She'd never be alone again. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The storm was coming, but this time she was ready. The next morning, Reese stood in the half-finished restaurant, staring at miles of exposed wiring. Tommy stood beside her, toolbox in hand. I'm telling you, my work is perfect. That inspector lied. I believe you, but we still need to pass inspection, and we need to do it in 2 days. Magnus appeared in the doorway. I've got someone coming. Different inspector, Patricia Sutherland. She's driving up from Minneapolis. Will she make it in time? She's leaving now, 4 hours. Reese looked at the walls, at the maze of wires that looked like a foreign language. What if she says the same thing? What if there really is something wrong and I just can't see it? Then we fix it, Declan said. In 2 days, with the Food Network crew arriving tomorrow. We'll work through the night if we have to. Reese shook her head. No, you've all done enough. This is my restaurant. My responsibility. Reese, Tommy, can you teach me? The young biker blinked. Teach you what? How to check the wiring, how to verify everything, how to fix whatever's actually wrong. That's a lot to learn in 48 hours. Then we'd better start now. Tommy looked at Magnus. Magnus looked at Declan. Declan smiled. Okay, Tommy said. Let's do this. But it's going to be intense. Intense didn't begin to cover it. For the next 48 hours, Reese barely slept. Tommy taught her how to read electrical diagrams, how to use a voltage meter, how to trace circuits, how to identify code violations. Her hands got cut on sharp metal edges. Her back ached from crawling through tight spaces. Her eyes burned from squinting at tiny wires in dim light. But she kept going. "This junction box," Tommy said at 3 in the morning. "What's wrong with it?" Reese studied it, remembered what he'd taught her 6 hours ago. "The ground wire isn't properly secured." "Good. Fix it." She did, hands shaking from exhaustion. But she did it. Catherine brought her coffee every 2 hours. Nina brought food she barely touched. Callum slept in the office, occasionally wandering out to ask if Mama was okay. Mama's working, baby. Mama's fighting. By the time Patricia Sutherland arrived, Reese had checked every circuit in the building, had fixed 7 minor issues, had verified that Tommy's work was indeed flawless. The inspector was a no-nonsense woman in her mid-40s with sharp eyes and a sharper clipboard. "Mrs. Bennett, I'm Patricia Sutherland. County sent me to do a secondary inspection." "Thank you for coming." Patricia spent 90 minutes examining every inch of the building, opening panels, testing outlets, checking load calculations. When she emerged, she was shaking her head. Reese's heart sank. "There's nothing wrong with this electrical system," Patricia said. "It's not just up to code. It's better than code. Whoever did this work knew what they were doing. So we pass. You pass with flying colors. I'll be filing a complaint about Inspector Harrison with the state board. This was either gross incompetence or deliberate sabotage." Patricia signed the certification, handed it to Reese. "Good luck with your opening, Mrs. Bennett. And for what it's worth, I saw you on the news. What you did for that young man that took guts. This town is lucky to have you." She left. Reese stood holding the certification, tears streaming down her face. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually did it." Magnus wrapped her in a careful hug. "No, you did it. We just helped." That night, Reese allowed herself 4 hours of sleep. Real sleep. The kind that comes after a battle won. She woke to smoke. The alarm was screaming. Callum was crying. People were shouting. Reese ran. The kitchen was on fire. Not the whole kitchen, just one section, near the stove, but the flames were spreading fast. "Everyone out!" Magnus roared. "Now!" They evacuated. Someone called 911. Within minutes, fire trucks arrived. Reese stood in the parking lot, watching firefighters pour water into her restaurant, watching her dreams literally go up in smoke. The Food Network crew was arriving in 6 hours. The grand opening was tomorrow, and her kitchen was destroyed. "Mama," Callum clung to her leg, "is our restaurant gone?" Reese couldn't answer, couldn't speak, couldn't process what she was seeing. The fire chief emerged. "Good news. We contained it. Damage is limited to one wall and some appliances. Bad news, you can't use that kitchen for at least a week, maybe 2. But we open tomorrow." "I'm sorry, ma'am. It's not safe." He walked away to confer with his crew. Reese sank to her knees, right there in the parking lot, finally completely defeated. "That's it," she said. "That's it. I can't do this anymore." "Yes, you can." Nina knelt beside us. "How the kitchen's destroyed. The Food Network is coming in 6 hours. I have 200 reservations for tomorrow. It's over." "It's not over until you say it's over." "I'm saying it. I quit." "No." Declan's voice was firm. "No, you don't quit. Not now, not after everything." "What choice do I have?" "We cook outside." Everyone turned to look at him. "What?" Reese asked. "We cook outside, block party style, set up grills, burners, tables, make it a community event instead of a fancy restaurant opening." "That's insane." "That's perfect." Magnus was already pulling out his phone. "The whole point of this story is community. People coming together. Show the Food Network something real instead of something polished. They're expecting a restaurant. They're expecting a story. Give them a better one." Reese looked around. At the bikers who traveled hundreds of miles. At Catherine, who was dying but had chosen to spend her last months here. At Callum, who believed his mama could do anything. "You're serious." "Dead serious." Declan held out his hand. "Come on, Reese. One more fight. One more round." She took his hand, let him pull her to her feet. Okay, let's do this." The next 6 hours were controlled chaos. Magnus called every biker within 100 miles, told them to bring grills, propane tanks, folding tables, anything that could cook or serve food. Nina and Catherine organized the recipes, simplified them for outdoor cooking, multiplied the quantities. Tommy ran electrical lines to power outdoor burners. Judith Sterling, of all people, showed up with her church group, brought tablecloths and decorations. I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, Judith said, but you helped Harold. You helped this whole neighborhood see things differently. Let us help you now. The Food Network crew arrived to find Reese covered in soot setting up a grill in the parking lot. Mrs. Bennett, the producer, looked confused. What's going on? Change of plans. We had a small fire last night, but we're not postponing. We're adapting. Adapting how? You wanted a story about community. I'm going to show you what community really looks like. The producer looked at the cameraman. The cameraman was already filming. This is gold, the producer breathed. This is even better than what we planned. By the time the first guests arrived at 11 a.m., the parking lot had been transformed. 15 grills cooking simultaneously. 20 folding tables covered in checkered cloths. Bikers in leather aprons serving food. Harold Miller pouring lemonade. Judith Sterling greeting guests. Catherine and Nina working side by side in the makeshift prep area. And Reese, in the center of it all, covered in flour and sweat and smoke, cooking her mother's recipes with the same love Anne had taught her. The line stretched around the block. By noon, they'd served 200 people. By 2 p.m., 400. They ran out of chicken at 3, ran out of biscuits at 4, ran out of everything by 5. This is incredible, the Food Network producer said. We've never captured anything like this. The spontaneity, the authenticity, the sheer joy. She turned to Reese. Can we do an interview? Now, right now, while you're in the moment. Reese wiped her hands on her apron, tried to smooth her hair, gave up. Okay, let's do it. The camera rolled. Mrs. Bennett, you had a fire last night that destroyed your kitchen. Most people would have canceled. Why didn't you? Reese looked around at the hundreds of people eating in her parking lot, at the bikers who'd become family, at Callum playing with other children, at Catherine watching with tears in her eyes. Because a year ago I was counting my last $7. I was alone, scared, convinced my life was over. Her voice cracked. Then 25 strangers showed up at my door on Christmas Eve, and everything changed. What changed? I learned that kindness matters, that helping strangers isn't naive, that the people we're taught to fear are often the ones who save us. Reese looked directly into the camera. Last night when that fire started, I wanted to quit, but then I remembered something my mother used to say. What was that? Food made with love can heal any wound. When everything else fails, you can always feed people. Reese smiled through her tears. So that's what we did. We fed people, and in the process we reminded ourselves what we're really building here, which is not just a restaurant, a place where everyone belongs, where strangers become family, where locked doors get opened. The producer was crying, the cameraman was crying, half the crew was crying. Cut, the producer whispered. That was perfect. The episode aired 6 weeks later. 22 million people watched Reese's story. The restaurant's website crashed from traffic within an hour. Reservations filled up for the next 3 months in a single night. But more than that, something shifted in the world. People started talking about kindness again, about community, about opening doors instead of locking them. The story went viral, not because it was sensational, but because it was real. And in living rooms across America, especially in the homes of men who'd lived through their own struggles, who'd known their own failures, who'd spent their own nights counting their last few dollars, something stirred. Hope. The months that followed were bittersweet. The restaurant thrived. Every table filled every night. Reese had to hire staff, had to turn people away, had to expand it again. But Catherine was fading. The cancer was winning. Everyone could see it. She spent her days at the restaurant, moving slower each week, but always there, always smiling, always grateful. I got to know you, she said to Reese one evening. I got to know Callum. I got to see what kind of woman you became. That's more than I ever dreamed of. I'm glad you found me. I'm glad you let me in, after everything. After I gave you up, you could have turned me away. My mother taught me that everyone deserves compassion, even people who hurt us. Anne was a better mother than I ever could have been. She was amazing, but Catherine, you gave me life. That matters too. Catherine died in August, peacefully, in her sleep, with Reese holding her hand. The funeral was small, just family. But the family was huge. 50 bikers in leather, Harold and Judith, Nina and Tommy, Vincent, who'd driven from Detroit, and Declan, who hadn't left Reese's side since Christmas Eve. She was happy at the end, Nina said. That's all anyone can ask for. She got to be a grandmother, Reese replied, even if it was only for a few months. She got to know her grandson. Callum, 3 years old now, put a flower on the casket. Bye, Grandma Catherine. Say hi to Grandma Ann for me. In September, Declan proposed, not with a fancy dinner or a big production, just the two of them in the restaurant after closing. Callum asleep in the office. Reese Bennett, I almost died on your doorstep. You saved my life. And every day since you've been saving me in different ways. He pulled out a ring. Simple. A single diamond. I know we've only known each other 9 months. I know it's fast, but I also know I've never been more certain of anything. He took her hand. Will you marry me? Reese looked at this man who'd been a stranger, who'd become a mentor, a friend, a partner, who'd taught her law when she needed it, who'd stood beside her through every fight, who'd never once tried to take over or diminish her. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll marry you. They married in October, small ceremony, in the restaurant, with everyone who mattered. Magnus walked Reese down the aisle, his eyes wet behind his sunglasses. Callum was the ring bearer, taking his job very seriously. Harold officiated, licensed online specifically for this ceremony. And when Declan kissed his bride, 50 bikers cheered loud enough to shake the windows. To Reese and Declan, Vincent toasted. May your love be as strong as your courage. To Reese and Declan, everyone echoed. That night alone in their apartment above the restaurant, Declan held his wife close. Happy, more than I ever thought possible. No regrets. Not one. Reese traced the scars on his face from the accident that brought him to her door. Best thing that ever happened to me was opening that door on Christmas Eve. Best thing that ever happened to me was crashing my bike in front of your diner. They laughed, the kind of laughter that comes from surviving impossible things together. The months passed, the restaurant grew, Reese hired more staff, trained them in her mother's recipes, built something that could last. And then December arrived again. December 24th. 1 year exactly since 25 frozen bikers had crashed through her door. Reese woke early, made breakfast for her family, her husband, her son, in the home they'd built above the restaurant her mother had dreamed of. Mama, is today the special day? Callum asked. Yes, baby. The angels are coming back. All of them. I think so. She had no idea how right she was. At 5:47 in the morning, the sound started. That same rumble, like thunder, like an earthquake, like the hand of God reaching down to shake the earth. Reese ran to the window, and there they were. Motorcycles, hundreds of them, thousands of them, streaming down the highway in the pre-dawn darkness. Declan, wake up. He stumbled to the window, stared. How many? I don't know, more than last time. Way more. They got dressed, ran downstairs. The parking lot was already filling. Bikes everywhere, riders dismounting, setting up, preparing. Magnus stood in the center, directing traffic, his phone pressed to his ear. Final count, he said when he saw Reese. 1,843. 1,800. Every chapter between here and Denver, plus some from further out. Canada, Mexico, even a few from Europe. Why so many? Magnus smiled, that same frightening smile from a year ago. Because last year you reminded us what we're supposed to be. This year we're reminding the world. By 10 a.m. the street was impassable. Motorcycles lined both sides for a mile in each direction. The sound was deafening, the presence overwhelming. But this time the neighbors didn't complain. They came out to watch, to marvel, to understand. Judith Sterling stood on her lawn with tears in her eyes. It's beautiful, she said. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. At noon, Magnus climbed onto a makeshift stage. The crowd fell silent. 1,800 bikers, plus the 1,000 residents who'd gathered to watch, plus the news crews from 6 different stations. 1 year ago today, Magnus began, 25 of us showed up at that door. He pointed at the restaurant. We were frozen, desperate. One of us was dying. We had nowhere else to go. A woman we'd never met opened that door. She could have locked it. She could have called the police. She could have turned us away. She didn't. She risked her life to save one of ours. And in doing so, she saved all of ours. She reminded us what kindness looks like, what courage looks like, what real strength looks like. Magnus's voice cracked. Reese Bennett, you taught a bunch of broken, angry, lost people that we were worth saving, that we mattered, that our lives had value. He pulled out a document, held it up. Last year, we gave you the land for this restaurant as a thank you. This year, we're giving you something else. What? Reese called out. A scholarship fund in Catherine Price's name for single mothers trying to start businesses. $500,000 to help other women the way we helped you. Reese's knees buckled. Declan caught her. You can't. That's too much. It's not enough. It'll never be enough. Magnus climbed down from the stage, walked to where Reese stood. You gave us back our humanity. You can't put a price on that. He handed her the document. Then he knelt. This giant of a man knelt in front of her. And then every single biker there knelt too. 1,800 people, on their knees, in the December cold. Thank you, Magnus said, for everything, for believing in us, for seeing us as humans instead of monsters, for opening the door when no one else would. Thank you, 1,800 voices echoed. Reese was sobbing, ugly crying in front of 2,000 people, and didn't care. Get up, please, all of you get up. They did, and then they celebrated. Food trucks appeared, vendors who'd donated their time, musicians who'd volunteered their skills. Someone had brought a massive Christmas tree. Decorations appeared from everywhere. It became a party, a festival, a celebration of everything good that could happen when people chose kindness over fear. Callum ran through the crowd, making friends, collecting stories, living proof of what could grow from a single act of courage. The sun set, lights came on, music played, and Reese found herself standing with her husband watching her son play surrounded by family she'd never imagined having. What are you thinking? Declan asked. About a year ago, about counting $7, about thinking my life was over. And now I have everything. She leaned into him. A husband, a son, a business, a family that spans the country, all because I opened a door. You did more than open a door, Reese. You opened hearts, including mine. As midnight approached, Magnus called for quiet one more time. Before we go, I want to say one more thing. He looked at Reese. This restaurant, this community, this family we've built, it started with a choice. One woman choosing to be brave when it would have been easier to be safe. Every day we all face that choice. Lock the door or open it. Turn away or help. Fear or love. Reese Bennett chose love, and it changed everything. He raised a glass to the angel's door, where strangers become family, where fear becomes courage, where locked doors become open hearts. To the angel's door, 2,000 voices roared. The crowd began to disperse, slowly, reluctantly, people hugging goodbye, promising to return, making plans. By 2 a.m., only the core group remained. Magnus, Nina, Vincent, Tommy, Harold, Judith, Declan, Callum asleep in his father's arms, and Reese. Thank you, she said quietly, for everything, for seeing something in me I didn't see in myself. We didn't see anything that wasn't already there, Magnus replied. We just reminded you what you were capable of. He headed for his bike, stopped, turned back. Reese, do you remember what you said that first night, when I told you we were coming back? No, what did I say? You said I thought I was saving you, but you saved me. He smiled. You were wrong. About what? We saved each other. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. He drove away, followed by the others, one by one, until only Reese and her family remained. She stood in the parking lot, the same parking lot where she'd counted $7, where she'd stood terrified as 25 bikers approached. where her whole life had changed. "Come on," Declan said. "Let's go home." "This is home." "I know, but Callum's getting heavy, and I think we could all use some sleep." They climbed the stairs to their apartment. Reese tucked Callum into bed, kissed his forehead. "Mama." "Yes, baby." "Was that heaven?" Reese smiled. "No, sweetheart." But it was close. So close. In the bedroom, Reese stood at the window, looking down at the empty parking lot, seeing ghosts of motorcycles, hearing echoes of laughter. "Still talking to yourself?" Declan asked. "Just remembering. Good memories, the best." She turned to face him. "Do you believe in destiny?" "I don't know. Why?" "Because sometimes I think I was supposed to be right here, right now, that everything that happened, all the pain and struggle and fear, it was leading me to that moment on Christmas Eve when I opened the door." "Maybe it was. Or maybe you created your own destiny by choosing to be brave. Either way, I'm grateful." "Me too." They climbed into bed, exhausted, content, complete. But Reese couldn't sleep. Not yet. She thought about her mother Anne, who'd taught her everything about love and food and fighting for what mattered. She thought about Catherine, who'd given her life and then got to see what that life became. She thought about Garrett and was surprised to find she felt nothing but pity for what he'd lost. She thought about every moment that had brought her here, every choice, every struggle, every victory, and she understood something fundamental. Her story wasn't special because of what happened to her. It was special because of how she responded to what happened, because she chose kindness when fear would have been easier, chose courage when giving up would have been simpler, chose to open the door when locking it would have been safer. That was the real miracle. Not the bikers who came, but the woman who welcomed them. Not the money or the fame or the success, but the heart that made it all possible. She thought about all the people watching her story, all the men and women sitting in their own kitchens, counting their own last dollars, wondering if they had the strength to keep going. And she hoped her story would remind them of something important. That one person can make a difference. That one choice can change everything. That the door you're most afraid to open might lead to everything you've ever wanted. That's the message. That's the truth. That's the gift. Beside her, Declan stirred. "You okay?" "I'm perfect." "Good. Now sleep. We have a restaurant to run tomorrow. And the day after that, and the day after that. For the rest of our lives." "Sounds good to me, V." Reese closed her eyes, finally ready to sleep. Finally at peace. Outside, snow began to fall, soft and gentle, covering the parking lot, hiding the tire tracks, making everything clean and new. Just like it had been a year ago, when 25 strangers had appeared in a blizzard, when everything had changed, when the door had opened and let in not just the cold, but also hope and family and love. The snow fell on the angel's door, on the restaurant built by broken people who'd learned to heal together, on the community that had formed around one woman's courage. And if you listened very carefully, you could almost hear it. The sound of 1,800 motorcycles, the echo of 2,000 voices, the rumble of something that sounded like thunder but was really just love, manifesting as steel and leather and loyalty. As bikers who'd learned that being dangerous and being kind weren't mutually exclusive. As a family built not from blood but from choice. As proof that in a world full of locked doors and closed hearts, there would always be people brave enough to say yes, to say enter, to say you belong here. And that more than anything else was Reese Bennett's legacy. Not the restaurant, not the money, not the fame, but the reminder that kindness is never wasted, that love always wins, that the door you're most afraid to open might lead to everything you've ever wanted. She'd opened the door on Christmas Eve, and through that door, she'd found her life, her real life, the one she was meant to live, the one that made all the pain worth it, the one that proved every struggle had purpose, the one that showed her who she really was. Not a victim, not a failure, not a woman counting her last $7 in desperation, but a warrior, a leader, a beacon, a woman who'd faced impossible odds and won, not by fighting but by loving, by opening doors instead of locking them, by choosing to see the humanity in people everyone else feared. That was her triumph. That was her story. That was her gift to the world. And as the snow fell and the night deepened, and Reese finally drifted off to sleep, one thought remained. Thank God for broken heaters. Thank God for Christmas Eve. Thank God for blizzards and bikers and moments when the only choice is between fear and love. Because if none of that had happened, she'd still be alone, still be struggling, still be counting dollars and losing hope. But it did happen. She did open the door, and everything changed. Not because of magic, not because of miracles, but because of choice. One brave, terrifying, beautiful choice to open the door, to let them in, to trust that kindness would win. And it did. It always does. Eventually, if you're brave enough to believe in it, strong enough to practice it, courageous enough to choose it even when fear seems smarter. That's the real story. That's the real miracle. That's the real gift. Not what happened to Reese Bennett, but what she did with what happened, how she responded, how she chose, and somewhere in America, in living rooms and kitchens, in places where people counted their own last dollars and wondered if they had the strength to continue, her story would remind them, you are not alone, you are not weak, you are not defeated, you are one choice away from changing everything, one door away from finding your family, one moment of courage away from discovering who you really are. So open the door, take the risk, choose love over fear, choose kindness over safety, choose to believe that the people you're most afraid of might be exactly the ones you need because they might save your life or you might save theirs, or more likely you'll save each other. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. That's how it will always work. As long as there are people brave enough to open doors, strong enough to welcome strangers, courageous enough to believe that love is stronger than fear. The snow continued to fall. The night deepened. The world turned. And in a small apartment above a restaurant in Pinewood, Minnesota, a family slept. Safe. Together. Home. Because 1 year ago, a door opened. And through that door, everything good and beautiful and true came flooding in. Reminding everyone who saw it that miracles aren't about divine intervention. They're about human connection, about choosing to see each other, to help each other, to love each other, even when it's scary, especially when it's scary. That's the miracle. That's the message. That's the truth that will outlast the restaurant and the fame and everything else. The simple, profound, life-changing truth that the door you're most afraid to open might lead to everything you've ever wanted. And all you have to do is be brave enough to turn the handle. Reese Bennett was brave enough, and her courage changed the world. Not the whole world, but her world, and the world of 1,800 bikers who learned they were worth saving, and the world of millions of viewers who watched her story and remembered their own strength, and the world of every single person who hears her story and thinks maybe, just maybe, I could be that brave too. That's the legacy. That's the gift. That's the angel's door. Always open, always welcoming, always reminding us what we're capable of when we choose love over fear. Always.